That's right.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Truth or Trend, the holistic breakdown with Dr. Vrzal and myself. We're going to take some time this morning to help you determine whether you should reach for that thing on the shelf that every talking head out there is saying is the next answer to cancer. It's the next answer to longevity and mitochondrial function and making sure that you're going to be able to be the best version of yourself. And truly, that's what we want for you. We want you to be the best version of yourself. And we want to make sure
Yeah.
that if you are reaching for something, investing your time, investing your resources into it, that you're truly getting to what your body actually needs. And it's not just been super marketed. There's a product we're going to be going over today. There's something that's being touted as the next magic bullet and mitochondrial energy. It's the piece that has to be there. But guess what, Dr. V? 40% of the population can't make it. So you have to
No,
supplement,
no.
right? Well,
Only
we're going to take a look at
40%.
that. And we're going to try and understand it. But we got this cool slide that Dr. V put together. I want to start you all out with a question. And I would love to, too bad we can't do this live. I'd love to see some of you answering in the comments. What is the answer to this question before we answer it for you? Throw out some of your guesses. Dr. V asks you, what do these have in common? And cue
Right.
Jeopardy music, Dr. V. What do you got to say about this slide?
Dun 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 dun. Yeah, this is a great one that people get stuck on, and I get some fun answers in conferences. But the reality is, each of these are things, nutrients that the body should endogenously make,
Mm.
right? And that's the big shock. Vitamin D is a perfect one. I live in Southern California, and we have plenty of sun. When I was in undergrad, they said, our exposing our hands as we walk to the car, from the house to the car is enough to make vitamin D. And so then, early on when labs started testing vitamin D, I kept saying, wait a minute, we're in SoCal. Why do people have D deficiency? Then as I pulled back the veil, I realized it's a very energy intensive nutrient to activate it from a vitamin to a hormone ultimately. And came up with recognized that ultimately it's typically cadmium that blocks the
Mm.
the hydroxylation, the activation of vitamin D. So, and then cadmium is a known, bone compromise. So each of these has similar stories like that. Glutathione should be reduced, and that's a massive process in the immune system and detoxification. B vitamins, that's often a surprise, right? B vitamins, uh, B12, for example, is made by lactobacillus organisms, which is a perfect prelude to what we're about to talk about with the urolithin A, and which is relevant to urolithin A as well. But B12 is made, B6 is made often in the gut. So when the gut is healthy, then we have the proper probiotics. So a lot of the probiotics, the good bacteria needs to feed on healthy fiber, a healthy gut environment, butyrate, and so on. Enzymes as well. Enzymes are very mineral deficient, and so most people are eating garbage vegetables that don't have enough minerals in them. Maybe, and so if we're deficient or have had a concussion, then when the body's not producing the enzymes as it should. K2 goes along with the vitamin D. um, MTHF is a methylation process that is often compromised by retroviruses like COVID, for example, or toxins. There's some organisms that I saw one the other day, a strep organism that can compromise the MTHF pathway there. So each of those are things that the body should be making, and if we're deficient in those, we need to look at what metabolic process has been compromised so that we don't make that. And so if we get a benefit from taking vitamin B12, look deeper into the gut, for example, what's not functioning. Are we deficient in the lactobacillus organisms, and what do the lactobacillus organisms need to feed on to function, to produce as we go? And so that's kind of where we end up. You and I have seen, the talking heads, as you talked about,
Yeah.
talking about hailing the great benefits of urolithin A. It's great for mitochondria. Doctors that do muscle testing, there's a mitochondrial reflex I use. The
Mhm.
two most mitochondrial dense areas is the brain and the heart, wouldn't you know? We want
Mhm.
both of those to function well. So certainly anything we can do to allow mitochondria to function properly is going to be very beneficial. So I use basically kind of a knife edge contact over the heart to test for mitochondrial dysfunction. And so then with that mitochondrial dysfunction, I want to look at, is it toxins compromising the mitochondria? Is it a virus, like a virus causing it to go into cell danger response or wartime metabolism where the metabolism isn't as functional as it should? We could test this urolithin A. If a person's taking it or has had benefit, we can test it to that. And again, look deeper, pull back the veil. Is the gut bacteria out of whack? Is there a toxin compromising it? But that gives us a nice inroad to test products like this and test why somebody might get value. So as you pulled back the veil and dug into this urolithin A, you learned some pretty exciting things and some tidbits that can help people be their best.
Well, I think that whole list of what you just showed there, as I'm thinking about you talking about it, they kind of fall into a category of their own, right? Your body would make it. And maybe short term, you can get some benefit from adding those in. And maybe you do need to until you can figure out what's missing from your body. But I think what we're trying to lead our message over and over with everybody is you shouldn't just park on that, right? Just go, hey, man, I discovered that if I get my glutathione injections, I feel great. But you're going to hit a wall after a while if you're constantly replacing something that should be made in your body. And so that's our caution, I think, overall, right? Any one of those on that list, you got to figure out why. If you have to be taking a massive doses of vitamin D because you just can't keep your D normal, then we got to dig deeper, right? Like you said, if you didn't discover that cadmium piece, it's going to show up as a problem somewhere else. And that's what we're trying to do with this is dig deeper down and say, okay, great. If you took this urolithin A and you had this miraculous turnaround, now what? Right? What do we learn
Right.
from that? Right.
And GABA is another good example of that. Where GABA is the main inhibitory brain chemical. A lot of people were taking GABA, and then the research comes out. Oh, wait a minute, we're desensitizing GABA receptors if we take GABA.
Right.
It's like, oh, wait a
Oh,
minute,
whoops.
why are we GABA deficient? Yeah.
Well, and that's the question I always ask is what is the dangers in taking something like urolithin A long term? And here's the answer, right? The answer is they don't know of any known side effects yet in humans, but
Yeah.
the main limitation is a lack of long-term studies, right? If we're talking about longevity, we have to have long-term studies. They do have people already reporting mild muscle discomfort with taking this too.
Mm,
So that's a
mm,
sign, right? That
mhm.
something isn't quite right for sure. And so,
Right.
and in as much as I love people like Dr. Mark Hyman, who is one of the people who's talking about this an awful lot, I do think if you listen to him to the end, he'll always say, "Oh, he's always want to do food first." But this he throws it in really quick.
But
We
buy
want
my
to help you
products.
understand what does that mean, right? So this
Yeah.
is the product that everybody's talking about, right? It's called Mitopure with urolithin A. And they say few people get enough from diet alone. Well, let's look at their diet first before we answer that. Right? Of course, few people, most people are eating a diet that's missing everything. But
Right.
MitoPure, here, listen to this, unlocks 6 times the dose of urolithin A when compared to dietary sources such as pomegranate juice without the sugar. So that sounds like an awesome thing, doesn't it? Right? Six
Right.
times than what you get from pomegranate juice. But here's where I want us to jump in and talk about this other piece. Well, the juice does not contain the fiber, does it, Dr. B?
Yeah.
So a little sleight
Right.
of hand there, right?
Right. Wouldn't you know? Yeah, and that fiber is going to feed as you're about to go, with the probiotics that really ultimately make urolithin A. So
That's right.
fiber is necessary. It's the building, it's the soil for all those healthy bugs that are going to make things like this, that are going to make that whole list that we just showed. Carry on, keep going. You're on a rant.
No, no, man. No, I love that. That's what I want to talk about is this fiber piece is so important. And you got to read the research and study the study. And if somebody comes in and they say, "Oh, it's better than pomegranate juice." Well, that's not eating a pomegranate, right? So that's a little deceptive, I'm going to say, because like you said, the probiotics need specific fibers, and that's what we're working with. We're talking about something called ellagitannins, and those ellagitannins may be somewhat present in juice, but they're going to be much more abundantly in the actual whole fruit itself, right? When you're getting that pomegranate juice. Now, here's the other cool thing that I wanted to kind of share with everybody. And I want us to get into a little bit in my concern with my colleagues out there who are going 100% carnivore, right? They've
Mm,
convinced themselves that they're going to have the
mhm.
best life ever if they don't eat anything that has fiber in it anymore. And this alone makes me concerned for them in the longevity piece, right? Because how are you feeding these specific microbes if you don't have the fiber that they feed upon? and all
Hmm.
the other pieces that come with it. And
Right.
so in my attempt to kind of get deeper into this, what we've discovered is that there is a molybdenum dependent enzyme that's also very much important in this process. And I wanted to hear you talk about molybdenum because I know that you find often that that can be a piece missing. What are the
Hmm.
reasons that you're looking for molybdenum and thinking why they would need that, and what are some reasons that they would get depleted from molybdenum?
Um, so two things there. Going back to the carnivore thing, let's look at, I'm a B positive blood type. So
Uh-huh.
I'm an optimist, So if a
Yeah.
person so if a person does well on the carnivore diet, what is actually happening there in the short term? They're probably cutting out a lot of the packaged foods, right? They're a lot of probably cutting out corn. They're cutting out a lot of these things that are very inflammatory, giving them problems. So much like what all the other stuff we're talking about, if they have benefit to that diet, what is it that they cut out that was compromising their health in the first place? Which
Right.
is another, I mean, part of why the cleanses work so great. As person does a 21 cleanse and then goes back and starts reintroducing foods, it becomes very obvious what food what symptoms are triggered by that food, as they reintroduce things like, ooh, now my neck hurts again. No, maybe I shouldn't be eating these, the sugar, these,
Is
these
that the
bad
sound you
grains.
make when your neck hurts? Ooh, right? Ooh, I got a pain. My body's talking to me.
That's it. Turn up the volume. What do I need to know?
Right. There you go.
So yeah, so always learn from what our body's trying to tell us
Mm,
ultimately. So that would be the benefit. But then yeah, the long term we're missing the fibers, missing a lot of these other nutrients that we need with diversity in the diet. Even vegetables, we need diversity in vegetables because each fiber is going to feed a different probiotic. So if we're
mhm.
deficient in a specific probiotic, part of what I kind of the fun I have in muscle testing is trying to test what fiber is going to help feed the probiotic that they are deficient in.
Mm,
Ultimately, it's
mhm.
if they're deficient, that means that nutrient, that probiotic is not being, that good bacteria is not being fed appropriately.
Right.
We're going to get into, some, there's balance. We don't want to have too much of the bad bacteria, but some of them we're
Right.
now finding out are good bacteria or they have benefit. In that realm, molybdenum, as you appropriately asked, helps drive the sulfation pathway as well. And
Bingo.
sulfation in context here helps with the conversion of the excitatory glutamate neurotransmitters to GABA, the chilling out neurotransmitters. So I'm often finding molybdenum necessary in the evening to help drive those
Mm,
detox pathways to help calm the brain, help people go to sleep. So it could be a potential benefit there. And then glutamate is very high with old concussions and things as well, right? The
yeah.
neurodegeneration. Glutamate is the metabolic byproduct of neurodegeneration. In other words, nerves dying. We don't certainly don't want that.
No, not in the
So we need to
brain.
break all that stuff down, right?
Well, I'm
So
glad. I mean, I love that this topic has brought us the opportunity to talk about let's call it Molly. Let's just do it. Let's reappropriate that name. Let's bring it back. Let's just call because you call it molybdenum. Did you call it that or Molly B Denham?
I know I
There's
was gonna tomato or tomato. I know.
Well, but I think it's important that people realize that this is a nutrient, that it is a micronutrient, a mineral that isn't necessarily going to be shown on a label, right? When people are looking at products, if you take a pomegranate and they put a nutrition label on it, they would likely not put molybdenum on there. So it's really hard for people to know what foods they would be getting it from, right? And of
Right.
course, nuts and seeds are a big source. But believe it or not, the exact same foods that they talk about that would provide you with these ellagitannins to create the urolithin A in your body are also molybdenum rich foods. So again,
Right.
does the MitoPure provide that piece or not? Because that could be a huge missing piece, like you said, for sulfation, for all of the neurotransmitter conversions that are happening there. And so what I had to do to just kind of take a deep dive, and I'm just going to share this with you, and I did a little before, is you're not going to see it necessarily on the label, but if you go to the farmers, you'll know whether or not you need to have molybdenum to make pomegranates. So I found the Florida Pomegranate Association highlighting what is essential. Now, these are the essential elements to require that are required for this plant to complete its life cycle, and you'll see molybdenum is on the list. And I love that, right? You have to have all of these for it to do its life cycle. So I think we can safely infer that it's a good source of the molybdenum, which is what we're trying to get to, right? Is that enzyme with molybdenum dependence as well. Now, the other
Does
foods,
it have
walnut,
molybdenum
pecan.
required too?
What's that?
Oh, yeah. Does it also require molybdenum?
Yeah. It needs molybdenum, molybdenum, and molly. All three have to be there. All right.
Right.
I'm glad.
So eat the food as God made ultimately is where it comes down to, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm
And
trying
keep
to
the
say.
diversity going on.
Well, and I think that we would all do better to be adding in a little more walnuts into our lives, a little more raspberries, strawberries. Of course, organic they have to be. I don't know why I'm talking like Yoda all of a sudden, but they do need to be organic as well. Now, in molybdenum, molybdenum, either way. Uh, for my carnivore friends, here's what I'm also concerned about: is you most of the time they're eating the muscle meat, right? They're eating the piece of the meat that's going to give them a lot of the protein, and there is usually nutrients in those. But your friend Molly, she's not as present in the muscle meats as she would be in the organ meats, right? This is where liver is so important, and having some sources of that. If you're going to be carnivore, I would really, really encourage that you're getting liver or organ meats in there, because that's a piece that you're going to start to see some deficits in your life if you don't bring that in. Would you
Right.
agree with
Eat the
that?
bones, huh?
Eat the bones. That's right. For sure.
Yeah.
And so,
Collagen.
yeah, and so this is where I think you were mentioning earlier too. We talked in previous episodes about Akkermansia and all these different microbes, and there are specific fibers that are really specifically needed for that. But then you mentioned something about how when we looked into those microbes that are essential for the urolithin A production, right? Because if they're assuming that 40% of the people don't have it, well, what are they? And how do we get them, right? And why aren't they there? And
Hmm.
it's not necessarily that they're not there. It's just that they're not there in a robust presence, often, is what we're finding. And
Right.
we'll actually find that these same microbes, when they become overgrowth or they are taking over too much of your microbiome, they become problematic,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so one of the things, again, like you said, we have to do is just get it the way that nature provided so that we can maintain this balance overall,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, you had one of those bacteria, and H. pylori is an example of that.
Yep.
H. pylori is endogenous. It's there. When it gets overfed, then we have ulcer problems, right? And when
Right.
it's underfed, we have other weakness, immune weaknesses. So H. pylori is one of those. You had one that was also related specifically to not urolithin A.
Yeah, I mean, there were many, many species that I found that were associated with the helping that conversion. And yeah, I can't really remember all of the species, subspecies, and
Yeah.
strains that they were, but I could read them off if I
Mhm.
looked them up. But the point is yeah, you have to keep these in balance. And what one other article that I thought you would find interesting is that it became more of a problem when there was a co-infection of something like hepatitis B or another virus. And why do you think
Mhm.
that would be? What's going on there? What's creating that problem? Why would a good bacteria become a bad bacteria if we have the presence of a virus?
Right, right.
Mhm.
So a big boon for me in clinical effectiveness was when I started testing for what was the weakness that allowed the bacteria or the virus to flourish,
There it
rather
is.
than, giving an antibiotic, God forbid, or something to kill the bug. Why
Mhm.
was the bug allowed to flourish in the first place? The immune system should combat that, should take care of it, should keep things in balance and harmony. And
Mhm.
so, instead of treating the bacteria, I started looking at, okay, the bacteria is in the lung is weak. Why was the lung weak? Oh, they had mold exposure. Oh, they had grief and sadness, crying from the loss of a loved one. What was the underlying weakness that compromised the gut, compromised the lung, the spleen, whatever the gland or organ is that was playing host to that bug. So then we strengthen the gland or organ, feed the lung or whatever, get the weakness, the compromise out, the mold out. Then they flourish and the bug goes away almost immediately. So it's the same deal as, keeping that divine dance of balance in our lives so that it's all functioning properly. Then it doesn't matter if somebody coughs on you with COVID, or they sneeze in your face with some ugly bug, that your mask isn't going to prevent anyway. Then the immune system does what it should, and we flourish. I mean, it's just like exposing our kids to dirt, to things, to pets, to bolster their immune system, so that their immune system has seen it. Now they have the antibodies for it. keep things
Right.
functioning as they should, feed the body with the minerals that it needs, the good, the B vitamins, the healthy, balanced, robust diet, and none of these things are a problem.
Absolutely. And if you're getting them from whole foods, organic foods, you're going to have a much better chance of getting all of the things that are supposed to be there as opposed to just an extraction that you're comparing it to pomegranate juice, right?
Right, right, right.
So much more. And I
Yeah,
think,
I mean, it comes back to, I mean, some of it even, I mean, as we're talking about this Urolithin A, I mean, I hate to compare it to the pharmaceutical mentality, but, but I
well,
mean, they want you dependent on it, right? They say,
right,
hey, take it. Hey, I feel a little bit better. Let's keep taking it.
right.
Ultimately, I mean, I've quoted this probably practically every episode we've done, but organic is cheaper than chemo,
Yeah. Yep.
ultimately, so
Mhm.
this urolithin A helps feed the mitochondria. It's mitochondrial dysfunction, typically at its heart, that sets up cancers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cancers are, a deficiency of minerals, ultimately. It's a viral trigger. It's an so
Well, it's a
looking at
combination.
what
It's an
those,
accumulation of a bunch of these things, right? It's not just one of them.
right,
That's the problem, right? Yeah.
right, right. And so the better we get at learning from the aberration, from the signs, the symptoms that the body's trying to tell us, the earlier we recognize it, the better we are at handling it soon before it becomes a fatal compromise.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And this is all information, right, that we're getting.
Mhm.
And as long as you're receiving the message, you're listening and looking and hearing,
Mhm.
yeah, then
Mhm.
you're gonna get more and more options to be able to help with the rebuilding and the healing. So okay, so the whole purpose of us, well, not the whole purpose, but one of the main reasons we started this whole podcast was to help people make these decisions, right? Should they take
Mhm.
MitoPure, should they not? Or for the
Mhm.
doctors out there listening, for their patients, it helps them to say, okay, listen, here's why, instead of having to get into this whole half-hour discussion of molybdenum and enteroclasters and all that other stuff. So what is
Mhm.
our final takeaway on this? Is it a truth? Is it a trend? Is this something that people should integrate into their life or not? What's your answer for them?
Learn from it. If you benefit,
Good
then
answer.
if you benefit from it, look at why your mitochondria weren't functioning properly, where your gut bacteria was out of balance.
Mhm.
Treat the reason you were deficient in this urolithin A in the first place. It
Mhm.
always comes back to, pain is your body trying to get your attention. It's trying to give you a warning that something has run amok. Yeah, so learn from it. Unfortunately, most modalities out there, most health practices are aimed at squashing the pain or suppressing the pain and not looking at where the cure is, right? So
Mhm.
unfortunately, there's no money in curing cancer. They,
Mhm.
rather have you dependent on things, right? Or these
Sure.
big dysfunctions. So look at what your body's trying to tell you. You need to. The tide has shifted. We need to be our own best advocate
Yeah.
ultimately. And
Mhm.
so rather than count on what the doctor says or what somebody else says, learn from what your body's trying to tell you so that you can be the best version of yourself.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And I think there's a lot of
Mhm.
well-meaning people out there like Dr. Mark Hyman and even Gary Brecka, I'll
Of
say,
course.
these people, they have a lot of influence. And all it takes is them saying, you need to do it, and people don't question it and they follow it. And I think that type of process has got us into a lot of trouble, right? Just trusting an authority in general. We always need to trust, and but you know, but what's it? It's trust but verify, right? That's what we're saying.
Mhm.
And what we're
Mhm.
trying to do with this podcast is understand the verification. Is there verification behind this person that we want to trust in telling us this is right, or is it a short term thing, or
Mhm. Mhm.
or are they missing something else? And that's the whole goal of what I think we're trying to help people realize, is that we can think about things a little differently. And if we're truly here for longevity, if we really want to be the best versions of ourselves, if we want to make sure that we're expressing and being here for the good of humanity in every way we can, right? We want to really understand these things and not just take somebody's word for it. And that's where I got a little
Mhm.
concerned when I heard Dr. Mark Hyman talking about it, saying, "Yep, this is amazing. It's with mitochondrial repair and it'll help you with your energy and all these muscle things, but 40% of you can't make it." And I thought, oh, I don't like that type of limitation put on something. The question is, why
Yeah.
can't 40% of you make it? That's what we should be asking,
Right. Right. Mhm.
for sure. And I
Yeah.
think this would
What's different about those 40%? Mhm.
right. So Dr. V, maybe we should get you one to muscle test against that mitochondrial point, but then muscle test it
Yeah.
versus molybdenum, or muscle test it versus
Mhm.
microbiome support or fiber or pomegranate. That's what I'd love to see.
Pomegranate's highly beneficial for, especially for all blood types as well.
Right.
And you mentioned walnuts. Walnuts are beneficial for all four blood types. So
Yeah.
these are easy to implement foods, and
Hmm. Hmm. This
things that we
episode was
can.
brought to you by Pomegranates of America, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. But
Very nice.
I'm trying to add in those things, and people want to know, what are your daily habits? And I think a few walnuts, several days a week is a pretty good habit to get into. It's good to have around for many reasons. I'm trying to make sure I'm adding in pomegranate to my list of things that I keep laying around the office for me to snack on,
Hmm. Hmm.
because it just keeps popping up. Raspberries and strawberries and blueberries are always in my office. Those are things that I want to make sure are available for myself to have a long-term application. So I don't have to go out and buy some Mitopure, get my mitochondria pure.
Right.
Sorry,
There you go.
Mitopure. We don't mean to be picking on you. We're just trying
Right.
to...
Trying to learn from you.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well,
Uh,
I think we did it, Dr. V. I think we
all
went
right.
we went all around this Urolithin A piece, and
Hopefully people have been inspired to keep looking at what their body's trying to tell. Again, ultimately, it's about being our best version of ourselves. Have the energy, have the mental faculties to continue to flourish and be there for the society, for our kids, for our families, and on and
absolutely.
on.
And my final takeaway for everybody is, when you do start something and you feel great on it, that use that again as information, not necessarily as the answer for the rest of your life. I can't tell you
Mhm.
how many times that's been an issue that I've happened with individuals. Like, for example, I introduced them to, say, adrenal desiccate because they were exhausted and they were in a really beat up state. And they had such a profound change in their life. They're like, great, this is the answer for the rest of my life, right? And that's not
Mhm.
right. We don't want them to
Mhm.
be living on adrenal desiccated for the rest of their life. We want to figure out, what's
Yeah.
appropriate for us now and what's appropriate for long term, I think.
Hmm. Hmm.
Cool.
There you
Any
go.
last any last thoughts
Good
before
stuff.
we let them go, before the people get back to their normal lives?
Listen to your body. It's telling a story.
Awesome. All right, we'll be back with another one next week, guys. Thanks for watching, and please keep your comments coming. We really appreciate you guys being here. We wouldn't be doing this without you. Take care.